Sound check. 1, 2. Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's live IELTS class. Hi, Safa. Hi, Mint. Mint, can you tell me what your name is? I can't read Cyrillic, and it's bothering me that I can't pronounce your, I guess it's your first name or your family name? That will also tell me that it's Marina. Okay, hi, Marina. There we go. That makes me feel better. All right, that probably means that everybody can hear me okay as well. Hi, Pi. Can everybody see the board okay? We're going to be doing some IELTS Task 1 example and strategy. Let's take that part 3, part 4 out. That's a remnants of yesterday's class. And of course, I'm living in the past here, but today is the 5th. All right. Hi, Mohammed. Greetings, everyone. Can you hear me? Can you see me okay? Just give me a couple of yeses, and then I know that most of your audio systems are fine. All right. Sounds good. Awesome. Okay. So this is a live IELTS class. I'm streaming to you from beautiful Budapest, Hungary, Central Europe. We've set up offices here just so we can have a little better time zone situation for most of you in the world. I'm originally from Canada. I will be back there later in the year. Again, my name is Adrian. You can always contact me by email, adrian@aehelp.com, if you have IELTS questions or something interesting to say. We have 2 websites, aehelp.com for academic IELTS. Hi, Rahul. And we have gieltshelp.com for general IELTS. Hi, Erpy. Nice to see so many students joining in. Again, I can see your questions in the live chat. I have a big TV behind the camera where I can see what you're asking me or what you're commenting. You are very welcome, Sitij Rocks, for the help. If you're studying for academic IELTS, please go to aehelp.com. Join us there. You can try our course for free by clicking on the green Try the Demo button. And for general IELTS, go to gieltshelp.com. You see the web addresses here as well. Definitely a good idea to join our full course, pay a few dollars, and save a lot of money by not having to sit the IELTS exam a second time. Hi, Sarah. Another option, of course, that you can support us by is by using Super Chat. If you have Super Chat in your country, it's going to be the little dollar sign, a little gray dollar sign or money sign beside the emoji in your chat. When you click on that, you can donate $1 or $2. It comes through your Google account, your Google Wallet account, and then I can see your comment in green or blue depending on how much you donate, and it'll stick that comment or that question to the chat. So I will definitely have a chance to answer those super chat questions or respond to those comments. So you can use that, donate a couple of dollars, support us. Of course, we need to eat. We need to pay for things just the same as you, so we do need to make money somewhere. That's why I'm always giving these sales pitches. Service we offer is a Skype practice interview with myself or with another English IELTS professional. For the Skype practice interview, you can also book those by emailing me or by going to our websites, and there's some help there. I'll show you the question for today so you girls and guys don't get discouraged and think that I'm just trying to sell you something. The question that we're looking at today is this one here. It's going to be a writing task 1 question. I'll make it even bigger, maximum size here so you can really read what the question is. So we will be looking at a question, task 1. This is for academics, so if you're studying for general IELTS, it's still a good practice for you. I'm going to make it a little bit brighter here for everyone. Let me see if I can make it a bit brighter there for you. Just give me a moment here. Okay, there we go. That's a little bit better. You can see that it's a little bit dark. All right. That should be much better for you there now. Let's make it a little bit darker. There we go. Okay. The charts below show the percentage change in home buyers in 2 countries and the types of homes sold in various years. Summarize the information by selecting and reporting main features and make comparisons where relevant. Again, this is for the academic IELTS. The general IELTS, you have to write a letter, so it's a little bit different. But if you're studying for the general IELTS, definitely you can still watch this class and listen to my English, learn and improve your listening skills. And of course, you can learn vocabulary and grammar by what I'm going to show you as well. So you do have a different task 1. Please keep that in mind. But nonetheless, I'm sure you can still learn lots of English by watching this class. So this question that we're looking at today, it will present you with a line graph that shows the housing market, and then it will present you with 3 pie charts. And you will need to, of course, analyze, interpret, and write about this information. I'm going to give you some strategy on how to do that effectively, quickly, and, of course, how to give a response that gets you a band 8 or 9 on the IELTS, okay? So that is going to be the lesson of today. Now, before I jump into the lesson, I want to show you where it's coming from. So please bear with me. This is our academic IELTS help website. Again, the URL is www.aehelp.com. If you want to join the full course right away, because you believe me when I say that it's a great course and it will help you with your mark, then you click this big red button, or in the video you can click the big red button there, and then it will take you to the payment form, which is also here. And then you complete your payment, you hit continue. You can see that in Hungary the course is $39 US. In countries with lower economies such as India, it's going to be $19 US. If you're in a wealthier country such as Germany, United States, or Canada, it will be $59 US. We use geo-pricing to make our company viable and to make our course available to more students around the world. It uses your IP to reference where you are. Okay, but again, you can try our course for free by clicking on this Try Demo button. And when you click that Try Demo button, you can still use a lot of our services like the speaking interview and the writing help. So I'm going to log in here and show you what you need to do. And I know that many students who watch these live classes now, you have access to the full course. So I just want to make sure that you're using all parts of the course that you can. Now, of course, you know about the full course, the 6 practice exams. Another point that I want to show you is your editing services here. So you can click on task 1 or task 2 writing. When you go on to task 1 writing, you'll get this screen here. And then here you get a pop-down menu. In that pop-down menu, you can click on any of these 12 questions. So let's click on this one here. This one is a table type question. So it's a task 1, it's a table. And then you can write your answer in the bottom here. Okay, and when you type that answer, then you click submit at the bottom. And then it will ask you to make payment. It counts how many words. So this is 1 word. It costs 6 cents US. You make payment, and then we get your editing. And when we get your editing, I'll show you what happens, okay? So when you get your editing, then basically what happens is we go through your editing, and you end up with a document like this. Let me show you. So here is an example of what you get back when you use our editing services. So a lot of students, even when you go to IELTS classes, unfortunately, the teachers in IELTS classes and schools that teach IELTS don't actually have time to give you good advice on your writing. So this is a kind of service for IELTS that's really, really smart to use, where basically you send us a task 2 essay, we correct the essay, so you can see all these red markings here. We correct your essay, and then also on the side, we give you comments about what you're doing correctly and what you're not doing correctly. And then, of course, we also give you the mark and we give you the corrected version. So here we show you what your essay should look like when it's correct in your language, in your writing. And then at the end here in green, we give you that this is a 6.5 before correction, after correction it's an 8, and then some very important general comments. Like for this student, we said don't overuse the article the, be sure to retain the same quality in the end of your writing as in the beginning. I guess this student loses their quality near the end. And then we say add specific observable measurable examples to your body paragraph. So this is a task 2 essay example. And again, especially for those students who already have our full course, I really, really strongly suggest spending a couple extra dollars and getting some of our editing services, so at least you have a good idea of what you're doing correct in your writing and what you're not doing correct in your writing. For some of you who asked me about the price of this one, it's 6 cents per word, okay? So if you write a 150 word task 1, that's $9. If you write a 250 word task 2, that's $15. It seems like a lot of money, but it's not. It's a lot of work, as you can see here with all these comments. There's 18 comments and about maybe 100 corrections or 50 corrections. So it's a lot of work, but also it's very valuable for you. You can look at this several times after you have this to learn how to improve your writing. And this is not something that you can get in most IELTS schools or classes because teachers don't have time to do this kind of feedback for your IELTS Task 1, Task 2, and it's very important. All right, hi Sai Baba, hi P, hi Pina, hi Hike, hi Mine. I see all you girls and guys joining. I don't want to steal your valuable time. I understand that you want to get to Task 1 and you want to learn about that, so let's do that now. But again, make sure that you use this service on the website. So definitely when you are on the website, go to these green buttons here and check them out in your My Student account. You'll find the questions for Task 1, Task 2 there. And then use it. Use these editing services. I promise you that you will be happy. Okay, we've never, ever, ever had a student who sent us a Task 1 or Task 2 edit and then said back, this is useless and this doesn't help me or anything like that. We've never had that happen. It's not covered in the full course because it's not realistic. So thanks for asking that, Sai Baba. It's not covered in the full course because it's not realistic, because some students use it once or twice. Some students use it 10 times. So of course it's extra work for us. It's extra time. So it's a pay per case service, okay? And you can use this in the free course. So if you don't want to buy the full course, if you want to just do the free demo course, you can still use the Task 1, Task 2 writing and the partner speaking service, and you can actually access the writing bonus course as well to learn about grammar and structure. Okay, let's jump back to the Task 1 example here. I'm just going to close up one of these. Just give me a second here. I'm just going to close up this PDF here. Okay, let's close that one up. And then let's go back to that Task 1 question. Here we go. So just bear with me 1 second. This question, by the way, is coming from the second test book. So for those students who have our academic IELTS materials, this question is coming from the second test book. It's test number 4, and it's on page 30, okay? So if you go to page 30, you will see this question in test book 2, okay? Now, the book does contain sample answers. So yes, to your question, Abhilash, we do give a sample answer to task 1. It's not a script, okay? Script is for speaking, okay, or for a movie, or for a play. You don't use the word script for sample writing, okay? But we do give the sample writing for task 1 and for task 2 in all of our practice exams, all right? So you get to task 1, you see the question, you see the line graph, you see the pie chart. What should you do first? So what should be your first step when you get to task 1 in your academic IELTS? So throwing it out there for all of you students, hi Eunice. Thank you for greeting everyone. That's very polite of you. So what do you do? What do you do for step number 1 in task 1? What should you observe? Can anybody tell me? Eunice says analyze. Manushi says it's a line graph. Yeah, ProSafa says identify the type. So yeah, absolutely. I agree with Safa. Even before you focus on the question or anything like that, identify the type of questions that you're being presented with, okay? So here in our example, you're presented obviously with this line graph, and then you're being presented with these 3 bar charts. Now again, one of the biggest mistakes, it's the number 1 mistake, okay? So pay attention to this because I know I've seen hundreds, if not thousands of students prepare for academic IELTS. And the number 1 mistake that I see for students, and this is the biggest mistake between a band 5 and a band 6.5, is they confuse what type of graph they're writing about or what type of chart they're writing about. The most common mistake is that students write about basically line graphs for everything that they see. So they write for pie charts, bar graphs, and everything like that the same as if they're writing for line graphs. And that's not a good idea, okay? Because that's strange and confusing. So step number 1 is identify the type of graph, diagram, or table that you are looking at. Okay, so in this example, we're looking at a line graph and a pie chart. Okay, obviously. So once you identify no, it's not the overview, okay? Don't jump ahead. You have to think before you write, Calden. So before you even get into the overview, you really have to just pay attention to what am I looking at, okay? So here you're looking at a line graph and a pie chart in this example. And then you need to ask yourself the question, okay, what is a line graph used for? What is a pie chart used for? So you must know what types of information different graphs or different kinds of graphs are used for. Okay, it's very important. And this is not just important for IELTS, it's also important for your university study. Okay, so when you go to university in the US or Canada or Australia, they expect that you know the difference between a line graph, a bar graph, and a pie chart. Okay, so I'm not going to talk about all of them today. If you want to learn about all of their different uses and reasons, again, please join our full course at aehelp.com and you can learn it there. It goes through step by step when you look at the task 1 strategy. Here we're just going to talk about line graphs and bar graphs. So line graphs. Question here is, what are line graphs used for? Okay. What are line graphs used for? When do we use line graphs to represent information? Can somebody help me out with this? Can somebody give me this answer? So I don't want to just give you fish. I want to teach you how to fish. So I want you to think, because IELTS, if you want to get a 6.5 or higher, It's not enough to memorize information. That's not going to work. You need to be able to use that beautiful, beautiful brain of yours, okay? Again, I studied psychology in university, and I really do think that you have beautiful brains. So Saman says to show trends, okay, to show time series, that's right, okay, so it's used for time series, used to show changes in trends. Manushi, absolutely, you're much closer to the right answer here. So changes in trends over different periods of time, yeah. Okay, Saman says fluctuations over a period. Proportions, nope, I would say not right. I would say you're jumping ahead to pie charts. Okay, definitely not proportions. Proportions are much more accurate to pie charts and bar graphs, Pravesh, than line graphs. So it shows changes in trends, often shows changes over time, and also shows continuity, right? Shows continuity of data. So it's very different from pie charts and bar graphs in that it shows something that's continuous. So that's why you use expressions like gradually increasing, gradually decreasing, or rapidly increasing, rapidly decreasing. What else does it show? I still haven't seen... okay, Manushi says differentiation between two or more items. It's not actually differentiations, Manushi. It is actually much more the similarities or the relationships, okay? So... Okay, so line graphs are used to show changes in trends, sure, often shows changes over time, and shows continuity of data. So it's used to show the relationships. By the way, what is the statistical term for those relationships? Does anybody know what is the word that I'm looking for here? It starts with a C. Second letter is a O. So used to show relationships, or if we're looking at statistics, that's right, Lytton. Very good. So some of you who are studying math majors know this for sure. It is the correlations, okay, or interactions between two or more variables. What are the variables? That's a very important piece of vocabulary, okay? So some of you are thinking, hey, why am I watching this class? What am I learning right now? Well, you're learning about task one. You're learning about when we use line graphs, but you're also learning vocabulary. Know the word correlation, know the word variable. Okay, these are very important vocabulary for task one. Change over time, continuity is a good one, data is a good one, trends. These are all very good words to know. What are variables? When I say variables on a graph, what are the variables? I'm very good, Madhu. I hope you're doing good as well, or you're also doing well. So what do I mean by variables? It's something that's changeable. Okay, well, let's jump to our example here. Okay, here we go. What are the variables in this case? Okay. What is the variables? Somebody tell me specifically. That's right, Manushi, the percentage, so the 0 to 100%, that's the y variable. That's why it's called the y-axis, right? And that's right, Saman. So the second variable is the x variable. It's the years, okay? So years, percentages, the x and the y-axis are the x and y variables, all right? Those are the variables. So two or more variables. Sometimes you can have more complicated graphs. On IELTS, you won't have that. You will only have X and Y. I've never seen a Z type variable. So X and Y axes, that's the plural, okay? The X, Y variables. Okay, which can be, for example, percentages, years, and many other types of variables, of course. Okay? So, line graphs show, thank you for those kisses. I appreciate the love. Okay, so shows changes in trends, often shows changes over time, used to show relationships or correlations, interactions between two or more variables. Y-axis, in this case, the percentages in the years. Now, if you don't know this information, I hate to be the one to tell you this, but if you don't know this information for all of the different kinds of diagrams, tables, pie charts, bar charts, etc., it's almost impossible to get over 6.5. You really, really need to have this foundation, this basic knowledge of graphs and charts to be able to get over 6.5 in task 1 for the academic IELTS, okay? So it's not an option here. You can't just learn some template from your IELTS class that your teacher is giving you and then hope that that works for your IELTS exam. It doesn't, okay? Academic IELTS is a thinking exam. You need to have the fundamentals to be able to get 6.5. There are no quick tricks. So you can go to your IELTS class or you can go online and you can find 100 different examples of line graphs, but I promise you that when you sit your IELTS exam, it will be a new type of line graph with new kinds of variables, new types of information, and if you don't understand these basics, it will be pretty close to impossible to get over 6.5, okay? So you have to think and you need to know this, all right? So you must know you must know your fundamentals, all right? Keep that in mind, please, all right? So again, on our website at aehelp.com, if you go to the writing section, it will really nicely explain to you each one of these graphs and charts, how they're used, why they're used, when they're used, and so forth. Okay, again, we're looking at just line graph and pie chart today, so I'm not going to go into all of those. Otherwise, you'll be sitting in front of your computer for the next 5 hours. So let's talk about pie charts real quick, so that today's example is going to be clear. When do we use pie charts? Okay, so when do we use pie charts? When is it a good time to say, hey, for this kind of information or for this kind of data, I'm going to use a pie chart? Okay, and again, just have a quick look here at today's example. Here you go. Okay, so this is the one for today. When do we use these pie charts? So Mohammed says when we want to show proportions. Absolutely, that's why it's a pie, right? What does the pie represent usually? So the whole pie, what does that represent? What is usually the representation of the whole pie? It's a total. Yeah, it's absolutely. So it's showing me a total. The total is usually how much? It's 100%. That's right, Yi Quim Wang. So the total is 100%. It's the complete. It's the entire amount, right? So then we can say that pie charts are used to show the proportions from the total. Usually 100%, right? So we can say that, okay? Usually from 100%, the proportions, absolutely. And then of course, to make comparisons, among those proportions and between different pie charts, right? So the data that we're looking at is different often than the data of a line graph. We don't actually confuse these two, okay? One of the most common mistakes that I see students making with pie charts, by the way, pie charts, funny enough, are the one where most students will make the mistake where they write about a pie chart the same as in a line graph. Does anybody know what I mean by that? That students write about pie charts as if they're writing about a line graph? And if somebody knows what I'm talking about, can somebody give me an example? You can even use this picture here to give me the example. Okay? Does anybody know what I mean when I say that a lot of students make a big mistake to write about pie charts as if they're looking at a line graph? I'm going to give you a second to think about that. That's an important one, girls and guys. It is probably the most common mistake. Yeah, so people write about it as if there's a connection between the times, okay? So I'll give you an example here. Some students will say, okay, that, so here we can see, hopefully you can see this, we can see that the blue is apartments, okay? And we can see that here it's 45% and here it's 33%. So a lot of students will write a wrong sentence in IELTS Task 1 that'll look like this, okay? So this is an example of a wrong sentence, of incorrect Task 1, okay? Okay, some people will actually do this. They'll go, there is a gradual increase in the purchase of apartments from 2006 to 2010. Okay? So a lot of students will write that kind of a sentence. Well, they'll look at this pie chart and they'll make a comparison between 2006 and 2010, and then they'll say that 33 to 45%, there is a gradual increase of sales in apartments from 2006 to 2010. Why is this wrong? Can anybody tell me why is this sentence wrong? So if I write this sentence, there's a gradual increase in the purchase of apartments from 2006 to 2010. Why is this a bad sentence? And you should compare among pie charts, Safa. So you do need to compare within the pie chart, but you should also compare among the pie charts. It's not the problem with this sentence. There's a different problem here. If you write this in a university exam, your professor will cross it out and say, you just lost 10% of your score, and this is wrong. You can't say that. That's right, Marina. You can't say this about these years. You can make a comparison between them, but why can't you say this? You can compare between the 2 years, but you can't say it this way. Why can't you say it this way? Okay, again, have a look. Remember what I said, pie charts, they show proportions of information within this year. So this is showing me what happened in sales of houses, townhomes, apartments in 2006. And on IELTS, academic IELTS, it does matter, okay? On academic IELTS, they will score you down if you write this kind of sentence because they say, hey, this student maybe is good at writing for a line graph, but they're not good at writing about a pie chart, okay? The reason why, so I see some of you are really guessing there, and that's okay. But the reason why is because you can't see the trend between these 2 years. So here's my question. How do you know what happened in 2007? How do you know what happened in 2008? How do you know what happened in 2009? Maybe in 2007, apartments went up to 70%. Maybe in 2009, they went down to 20%. So maybe if this is a line graph, then maybe for a line graph, the information would look like this. Okay, maybe it would look like this for 2008, and it would look like this for 2009. So is this gradually increasing? No, it's not gradually increasing, it's fluctuating, right? I don't have information for 2007, I don't have information for 2008 or 2009, so I can't say, okay, I can't say that there's a gradual increase, okay? I cannot say that there's a gradual increase because I don't have the information for those missing years. So that's an assumption. And as you can imagine, in the real world, for example, in a company, in business, that would be a huge mistake. That could cost you your job, to say something that there's a gradual increase, and then your boss or someone discovers that there isn't a gradual increase because there was a huge negative in, say, 2007, and then you get fired because you just lost the company millions of dollars. Oopsie, sorry, I didn't know why we were using pie charts instead of a line graph. Okay, so your boss is not going to find that probably as funny as you do right now. You will probably get fired for potentially losing the company millions of dollars, okay? So you have to be very careful. So make sure that you use the correct language for the right type of graph, okay? And again, one of the very, very common mistakes that I see is that students write about pie charts the same as they write about line graphs. You can't do that, okay? Do not confuse pie charts with line graphs, okay? That's a big mistake, and it does cost you on IELTS, okay? So the IELTS people do pay attention, and they will say, hey, that's not right information. That's wrong. That will be bad in university. You get band scored down. Maybe you wrote a perfect sentence, but if it's wrong, okay? So do not confuse the language between line graphs and pie charts, okay? It is one of the most common mistakes that I see good English-speaking IELTS students make. Don't make that mistake, okay? So keep it clear, keep it correct. All right, so we said step number one. Then we said step number one, when you get to task one, is identify the type of graph, diagram, or table that you're looking at. For example, here we're looking at a line graph and a pie chart. Be clear about what kind of language you will need to use to write about this information, okay? That's step number one. What's step number two? So, okay, now you're smart. You've watched these live IELTS streaming lessons from Academic English Help on YouTube. You subscribe to this channel. You saw these videos. You know that you're not going to confuse a pie chart with a bar graph or a line graph. So, yay, I know what kind of language I'm using. What do I do next? What can I do next? This is that was the first step. What do we do next? Manushi, that's an interesting question. Manushi is asking me, what are the most common types of questions in task one? The most common types of questions in task one are line graphs, bar graphs, pie charts, diagrams, and tables. And it's an even split between those. And then rarely you get a flow chart. Analyze the question. Manushi says, first analyze the question before you do an overview. Nabeen, please subscribe to the channel, and you can see line graph versus bar graph there as well, okay? Again, I can't go through every question type right now, otherwise you guys will get really bored and lost. So let's go to step two. Manushi said the right word there. He said analyze the question, and by that I actually mean the question itself. So before you look at the charts and the diagrams, take a look at the original question here, okay? And if you're not sure, if you're a little bit worried that you're not clear, then what should you do? So I read the question, okay? You say, you should spend about 20 minutes on this task. The chart below shows the percentage change in home buyers in 2 countries and the types of homes sold in various years. Summarize the information by selecting and reporting the main features and make comparisons where relevant. So what can I do? I can paraphrase it, right? So if you really, and you should practice this at home, analyze the question and paraphrase it. All right. Can somebody paraphrase this question for me? The charts below show the percentage change in home buyers in 2 countries and the types of homes sold in various years. So that part of the question, can somebody please tell me another way to say this information, just to double check to make sure that we know what we're actually looking at here? Okay. Somebody please paraphrase that for me. So look at the keywords: home buyers, countries, sold, various years. Those are all words, percentage, that you can paraphrase and say in another way. And I implore you that at home you should try to paraphrase the question before you start writing. So when you're practicing this at home, it's really good, okay, to do that. So someone give me another way to say that underlined sentence, that red underlined sentence. Okay, the charts illustrate. Sure, it's another way. Giffen's starting it up. Of course, another way to say charts is to say diagrams, right? Okay. So the diagrams illustrate. It's a good way to start it up. The proportionate changes, sure. Percentages are proportions as well, absolutely. The differences in buying in 2 countries, another way to say countries is nations, right? So the diagrams illustrate the proportionate changes in house buyers in 2 different nations. And the kinds of dwellings purchased in various years. Purchased is a little bit different than sold, but that's okay. Dwellings are places where we live, so those are our homes, our houses, right? Okay, so there are a couple reasons that I want to paraphrase the question, okay? Why do I want to paraphrase it? Anybody know? Why is it a good idea to practice paraphrasing the question of task 1 at home? So why paraphrase task 1, and by the way, of course, task 2, questions at home? So why do I want to do this at home? Why do I want to do this exercise? Can someone tell me? Nabin says to get perfect marks. Yeah, definitely. It will help you to do that. You make sure that you really understood the question. That's right, Guira. So that's the first reason. Guira Rauf says, well, it's to make sure that you really understand the question. One of maybe the second most common mistake that students make is that they write about a completely wrong question. They write about something off topic because they didn't actually clearly understand the question or the graphs, okay? And Safa also says to make sure that you really understand the question. Absolutely. And that's why you want to do it at home. So one reason that you do it is to make sure that you really understand the question. Okay, what's another reason that you do it? Abhilash, in the real exam, you probably still want to paraphrase it, and I'll show you why in a second. Okay, what's another reason that we want to paraphrase it? Not to get off topic, right? But I'm also doing something interesting here. Yeah, there you go. So Marina says to make it more simple and new words. Absolutely, to collect useful vocabulary. Yeah, so notice that here, when I paraphrase it, the diagrams illustrate the proportionate changes in house buyers in two different nations and the kinds of dwellings purchased in different years. I'm actually collecting some very useful synonyms and different ways of saying that information so it's not so repetitive. Now, your task 1 and your task 2 marks, one of the points that the examiners are looking for is what's called lexical resource. And lexical resource includes what's called range of vocabulary. So when you paraphrase, then you are finding different words to say those key nouns and verbs and adjectives that are in the question that you will likely use in the essay at least 2-3 times. So instead of repeating the same word like house, you now know the word home or you know the word dwelling. So you can switch those up, and of course, guess what happens? Your mark goes up, okay? So that's another reason. What's another reason? There's a third reason why I want to paraphrase task 1. What's another one other than the synonyms? So one of the reasons is to make sure I really understand the question. Another reason is I'm collecting useful vocabulary for the response in the essay. And another reason is because usually paraphrasing the question is what? That's it right there, okay? So it is often the first sentence of the first paragraph, which is the introduction or the overview, okay? So usually that will be the first sentence. Now, if you write the same sentence as the question, so if you just repeat the question, and I've seen students do that, I've seen students actually write the question again as their first sentence, so they just literally repeat the question, that does not get you any marks. You get 0 marks for that. They don't even count that, okay? So all you are doing is wasting time and wasting the words if you just repeat the exact same question for your first sentence, okay? So this can be the first sentence of our overview, okay? Or introduction. Okay? I like to say introduction because that is the most technical way to call the first paragraph. All right, so now we know step 1 is look at, so again, step 1, we want to identify what kind of graph or diagram it is that we're looking at. And then fine, now we know that. We know it's a line graph and a pie chart together, or pie charts together. Step 2, we know that we need to analyze the question and paraphrase it. So we've done that. We've paraphrased the question. It is the first part of our introduction or overview, so we begin the essay. The diagrams illustrate the proportionate changes in house buyers in 2 different nations and the kinds of dwellings purchased in different years. Now, what I want to do here is make it specific, okay? So I wouldn't write this in the actual IELTS. I would make it more specific. So I would do it this way. I would say the diagram illustrates the proportionate changes in house buyers in the USA and Canada. Okay, that's because you can see here from our diagram, our line graph, you can see here that the comparison is the USA, which is the blue line, the United States of America, and Canada is the red line. So the two countries is actually USA and Canada. So I would make sure that I'm specifically saying that. Now, even before that, instead of saying diagrams, I would say the line graph and 3 pie charts. Okay, so I would say the line graph and the 3 pie charts illustrate the proportionate changes in house buyers in the USA and Canada and the kinds of dwellings purchased in different years, respectively. Okay, know this word respectively for task 1. It allows you to organize your essay in a much better format. Does anybody know why I put the word respectively here? Anybody know why the word respectively? Why did I do that? Why did I put comma and then respectively? Anybody know that? Can anybody, what kind of order am I showing there? What is it that I'm actually telling the reader? And a native speaker will know this. They will understand this from this. Yes, exactly, Prabesh. It's showing them that the line graph is the proportionate changes in house buyers for the US and Canada. So that's what it's showing. And the 3 pie charts illustrate the kinds of dwellings purchased in different years. So it breaks that information clearly into the line graph and the pie chart. So that's exactly what it tells the reader so that they don't get confused what is actually showing what, okay? So that's why that's a very, very powerful, effective form of writing. Knowing that word and knowing how to use it accordingly is the same as well. Now, I can make this even better. How can I make this even better? So how can I make this even better? What further detail can I add to this first sentence of the overview to make it even better? Let me go back a little bit here to the actual question so you can tell me, and I'll give you a hint. I'd want to look at that. So I'm looking at this, and by looking at this, I can make my overview even a little bit better. I can add in the years. That's what Joao says, Arnaldo. Yeah, he says, name the years. Okay. What else can I do? So even before adding the years, what else can I do? Yeah, state the kinds of dwellings. That's right, Akmal. So I can do that with an additive clause. It's called an additive clause. So I can go the line graph and 3 pie charts. I wrote 3 in there. Somebody just asked me, why did I write that? Because I'm being specific. Notice how there's 3 pie charts, right? So the line graph and the 3 pie charts illustrate the proportionate changes in house buyers in the US and Canada and the kinds of dwellings. And I can add that in with a couple of commas here. Okay, so there I can put apartment, townhome. Does anybody know what a townhome is? The years I would probably leave out right now just because they're a little bit different in the two graphs. Does anybody know what a townhome is? A townhome and a townhouse are exactly the same, Marina. It's not exactly the same as a house, guys. A small house is a small house, Prabesh. It's different than a small house. It's basically when you have a house that's joined to the next house. So this is where you have basically house and another house and another house and another house, and these houses are all joined together. So they share walls, okay? It's not an apartment because there's nobody living above or below you, so they're all built on the ground, generally speaking, but they're just joined together side by side, okay? Like in England, that's right. England has a lot of townhomes. That's why this is a commonly known expression in England, okay? So that's what that is, so townhomes. Okay, so now I've done that, okay? So I've looked at, this is not enough for the overview, but I've definitely now got my first sentence. It's a good sentence. It's a band 9 if there are no grammar or spelling mistakes in it. So that's my first sentence. And now what do I do? So what is my next step? Okay, so I've got my step 1, I've got my step 2, I've done the paraphrasing, I've written the first sentence of the introduction. What is my step 3? Okay, so what do I do for step 3 of task 1 for the academic IELTS? And again, if I'm going too fast, if this lesson's really intense for you, don't worry. You can always go to aehelp.com, join that full course, and you can review this anytime. Also, of course, if you subscribe to our channel, you will be able to see this video in a couple hours as a recording. Okay, so what do I do next? I don't write the body yet. I don't do analysis yet. What do I do next? We do not really have central heating. It's not a popular form of heating, Marina, in Canada. We do have it, but it's not popular. Before we continue with the overview, before we continue with the body paragraph, what should I do next? This is a very, very important step for success in task 1 of IELTS. I haven't done something. There's something that I still have to do before I start writing. That's right, Bina, plan. Yeah, Bina Yoshi says plan. You got to think, right? Okay, it's really, really important. So think, plan, indicate 5 clear points of comparison on the graph. Gives structure to what you're going to do. Gives structure and allows you to write quickly. Okay, so some people think, hey, I don't want to waste time. I only have 20 minutes for task 1, so why am I doing all of this that Adrian's telling me? Well, it's ironic, but the reality is when you do what I'm telling you, especially when you practice it at home, you will actually write faster and better for task 1. So your next step is you need to plan. You need to look at these diagrams and you need to plan. You need to really figure out what you're going to do. So we want to plan some points of comparison. So first we're looking at this line graph, and what are the interesting points that we want to look at here? So what would be my point number 1 looking at the line graph? And that's right, you won't get stuck in your essay. A lot of students get stuck if they're not planning. So what would be a good point number one? When you're looking at a line graph, remember line graphs are linear. So you go year by year, they're linear. So generally speaking, your best point of comparison is going to be this here, okay? So that would be your point number one. Okay? Then what do I want to do for point number two? Highest point and lowest point? Not really. I think highest point and lowest point, Safa, is a little bit more pertinent to bar graphs. I wouldn't talk too much about this increase decrease of 2001 to 2002. I would just say that roughly these percentages are the same. Then I would talk about maybe the increase here for Canada, and then the increase here maybe. Now, remember, there isn't one perfect recipe. So I'm not telling you that my way is the only right way, okay? You could have different ways of doing this. So I could just talk about Canada and make this 0.2, and then make this 0.3, and then make this 0.4, and then this fluctuation and decrease, I could make that 0.5, right? And combine that into one sentence. As in the US, I could talk about this point here, number one, and then moving up to this plateau here, 6, and then this very rapid decrease, 7, and then the planing here, 8. Okay? Now I want to be careful because I don't want to overload the information here. All right? If I overload the information, then I might run out of time. So I want to stick to the key aspects of the chart. The key aspects is this sharp increase for Canada, this sharp increase for the US, this sharp decrease for the US, and this fluctuation for Canada, okay? And then here I have my pie charts. So what do I want to compare here? What are the points of comparison on the pie charts? Anybody? What would be my point number? I guess it would be number 9 at this point. So what would be point number 9? The percentage of what? What percentage would I probably talk about for 9? Can somebody be a little bit more specific? Yeah, houses, that's right. So I would probably talk about this being a dominant percentage here. So that would be my 9, right? My point number 9 here as well. So I would say that in these 2 years, it was roughly half of all real estate sold. And then in 2010, it was just a third or under a third, right? So that's an interesting point there. What would be my point 10? Now, I'd want to be careful, Hussein, with fluctuations here. I don't want to say fluctuations because I don't know that, right? It could just be a planing and then a decrease, right, for houses. So again, it's not a line graph. Keep that in mind, guys. Apartments, yeah. So apartments, we roughly have the same here, and then we have a change here. So that would be maybe my point 10. And then, of course, if I have a lot of time, I might focus on townhouses as well, but that's not relevant data, okay? So that's not relevant data. Now, here's an important question, and this is really, really important. So if you want to get band 7, band 8, band 9 in IELTS, you really have to do this, okay? I'll make a special note of this in a second. When you have a line graph and a pie chart like this, okay, then it's very, very important that you make a comparison between these two, okay? So what kind of a comparison can I make between these pie charts and this line graph? What is the comparison that I can make between these 3 pie charts and these line graphs? So what is obvious? What is something interesting here? Notice the years 2002, 2006, 2010. You have 2002 here, you have 2006 here, and then you have 2010 here. What is something interesting? What is something that I can infer? Okay, so what can I infer when I compare these two? So what can be inferred? Inferred means an educated guess. Keep this simple. So don't get too tricky. Don't try to guess too much. Just state what you think is clear here. And notice that this is types of housing sold in the USA, okay? Careful not to bring Canada into this. So you're paying a special attention to the blue line. Okay, you're paying special attention to the blue line because the pie charts show the sales of homes in the US, so only applies to the blue line. Forget about the red line for Canada. So what can you guess here? Between 2002 and 2008, or 2008, maybe a little bit mid-2008, there was a lot of increase in the purchase of what kind of real estate? What do you think were the most kinds of, if we look at this and we look at this, what do you think the most types of houses sold between these years were for these home buyers? That's right, Abhilash. It's probably a house, right? Because we can see it's 55% and 49%, right? Until 2006. But 2010, houses suddenly are down and apartments are up. So we can infer that as the number of home buyers decreased from 2007, 2008, right? That largely affected the types of homes that were being bought. Okay, so there's an effect between the change in the number of home buyers and the types of homes that are being bought. Okay, that's the key comparison between the two. All right, so you have to find that connection. If you do not find that connection, it's very difficult, maybe impossible, for you to get a score higher than 7. Okay, or even 7 might be difficult. So remember this. When you are presented with multiple graphs and tables, sometimes it will be like a line graph in a table, you must make some type of comparison and or contrast between the two types of graphics. I've never seen 3. Okay, I've never seen where they do like a line graph, pie chart, and a bar chart. I've never seen 3. I think that's too tricky for the IELTS. They don't want to do that. In university, yeah, definitely, especially second, third year classes, you might see something like that. But on the IELTS, you will only see 2 types. Okay, so you'll see a line graph with a table. You'll see a bar graph with a table. A bar graph with another bar graph. A pie chart with a line graph, like in this case. Okay, and you must find that relationship between the two in order to get a high score. If you don't, then it's going to be very difficult to get a high score. Okay, that's why they're giving you the 2, because they want you to make that comparison. Okay. All right, so we can include this step number 1 to 2 in the overview. And then we can also include 9 and, well, probably 9 only in the overview as well. So we can do something like this. So in the overview so far, we have this from the question. The line graph and the 3 pie charts illustrate the proportionate changes in house buyers in the USA and Canada, and the kinds of dwellings, apartments, townhome, and house purchased in different years, respectively. It is clear from the line graphs that both countries experienced significant changes in the number of buyers from, let's see here, 2001 to 2011. Okay, line graph, sorry, because it's just one. Also, it is clear that the popularity of different types of homes purchased changed, especially between 2006 and 2010. Okay, so that would be lots for the overview. Okay, that's a nice long overview. Again, remember that task 1 is 150 minutes, or sorry, 150 words minimum, 20 minutes. Someone, you're asking me how long this lesson is? Probably about another 30 minutes, okay? We've got probably about half an hour left for this lesson. I'm going to get into the analysis now. We've obviously indicated the key points of comparison, and then we can get to the summary. So at this point, now that I've done all of the explanation of strategy, we're actually getting into writing the example, all right? So 150 words minimum for task 1. That means you have to write at least 150 words. If you want to get 7, 7.5, 8, 8.5, you should probably write closer to 200, 220 words, especially when you have something like this where it's a line graph and a pie chart or pie charts combined, okay? All right, so now we wrote the overview, and now we can get into the analysis, okay? So the analysis, we're comparing Canada and the US first. So what should be my first sentence for the analysis? Can somebody give me the first sentence for analyzing the comparison between percentage change in home buyers between Canada and the US? Somebody want to give me the first sentence? What would be a good first sentence comparing the changes in the percentage of home buyers between Canada and the US? Bina, if you write more than 200 words, it's okay. Like I say, if you want to get 7.58, you should be writing 200, 210 words. Just make sure it's quality over quantity, okay? So you have to be able to judge how good of quality can you write. So quality over quantity. So I probably want to, okay, I'm going to give you a little help here. I probably want to compare the change in the increase of Canada versus the US. I wouldn't say gradual, Apalish Kumar. I would say it's quite rapid. So this would be quite a rapid increase. That wouldn't be gradual. Gradual would be more flat, okay? So from 2002, Marina says from 2002 to 2005, we can see a rapid increase in home buyers in Canada, okay? Absolutely. Safa says over the years in the first decade, careful with the first decade, I would say first half decade of the 21st century, there's dramatic changes in the United States and Canada, positive changes in the United States and Canada. Absolutely, so I would say that. So this is the analyses. Okay. in the first 5 years, both Canada and the USA experience a rapid increase in home buyers. And we can name that change. So both of them roughly, let's say 30%, 50%. Canada climbs from 50 to 90, and then United States climbs from about 30 to 70, so roughly 40% increase for both, right? So in the first 5 years, both Canada and the USA experience a rapid increase in home buyers, roughly a jump of 40%, or roughly a change of 40% is okay. And use the symbol, okay? Don't waste time by writing the word percent. IELTS does not appreciate you writing the word percent, and thinking that that's how you're going to reach your word count. Okay, so what should I say after this? So I say, in the first 5 years, both Canada and the USA experience a rapid increase. Now, according to the line graph, right? I should include that at the beginning. So in the first 5 years, according to the line graph, both Canada and the USA experienced a rapid increase in home buyers, roughly a jump of 40%. And I can say from 2002 to 2006, if I want to be very technical. Okay, what can I write next? So I've named this and I've gotten to this point here. Or, yeah, I should say 2005 probably, especially for Canada. Okay, make sure you're correct with your numbers. It does matter on IELTS. So if you have to go back, cross something out and make a correction, make sure you do that. Okay? All right. What can I write next? Yeah, so Maria Jabbar says there is a significant drop of home buyers in Canada. Well, no, not in the years 2002. I would say from 2005. However, the United States continues to climb, right? So I would probably now compare, like I said, remember this is my third point here. So I would compare this third point to this point number 6 here, right? We can see that the US continues to climb, but Canada is now dropping, okay? So that's probably what I want to focus on right now. All right, that would make the most sense. So it's linear, so make sure when you're describing a line graph, you're keeping it linear. After 2005, Canada suddenly drops in home buyers, but the USA continues to climb until what year? Until 2006-ish? 2000, just after? Until post 2006. I'm not repeating after because I already used it here at the beginning of the sentence. Okay, now what would I write next? Okay, what would be the next best thing to write? Okay, let's read some of those. So Marina says from 2005, Canada has a decrease till 2007. Sure, I can write it that way. That's good. Canada collapses in home buyership until 2007. That's also a good expression there, Shabazz. Whereas in the next 3 years, they take the opposite trends for both. That's right, Safa. So for the next 3 years, yep, Canada starts to increase again from mid-2007. And then the United States finally starts to drop from 2008. Okay, that would be my point number 4. Yeah, so moving Lytton from point 3 to point 4. That's definitely what I'd want to talk about, is this increase for Canada here, and then this plateau and sudden decrease for the United States. I probably am not even going to talk about this just because it's too much information. It's not necessary, all right? If I'm very good at writing, I might mention where Canada and the US end up in the year of 2011, all right? So let me get there now. All right, so from mid 2007, Canada, again, yeah, it's hyphenated. So again, experiences a sharp rise in the change of home purchasers. Okay, some paraphrasing there. Then, near the end of 2008, USA has a quick decrease, or plummet is maybe even better. Plummet plummets from 90% all the way down to roughly 25%. Okay, so doing some more paraphrasing here. So then near the end of 2008, USA plummets about 70% change in real estate buyers until what year? Until mid 2010. Okay. So there, now if I'm really quick and I can write 200, 250 words, then I might finish with by 2011, the percent change for Canadian home buyers is, and US home buyers is, but it's not completely necessary because don't forget, I still have to write about these pie charts, okay? So the pie charts must have as much attention as the line graph. Now here I'm going to write about point 9, that the dominant type of housing in the year 2002 and 6 are houses, and then that decreases in 2010 to just 1/3, okay? Now, I can't say decreases because it's not a line graph, so I have to pay attention to that. So when comparing the pie charts, there are interesting or significant, use that word, changes between types of homes sold, especially from types of homes sold. Now, we don't have to say especially because we said that in the overview, right? So don't repeat too much information because that's a waste of time and your marks go down. Types of homes sold. In 2002 and 2006, houses dominated the real estate market. At roughly half, okay? Use these terms like half, a third, a quarter, okay, 1/5. So use these terms. Don't just say percentage, 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 okay? That will help you to increase your score, all right? So here, in 2002 and 2006, houses dominated the real estate market at roughly half of all types of housing sold. However, in 2006, this changed to just under 1/3, 30% being houses. Okay? Now, what can I write after this? So I know I've given you a lot of sentences here. So give me the next one. So I've talked about number 9. I've talked about the houses. Now let's talk about the apartments. Can somebody give me the example sentence for apartment? It's somewhat the inverse of what I just gave you. So there's some assistance there if you think about what I just wrote. Okay? Somebody write the next sentence that describes the difference in proportions for apartments sold in the U.S. Abhilaj, don't panic. It's not so hard. Once you try a few examples at home and you get the vocabulary down, it will become easier, I promise you, okay? And again, you can go to aehelp.com and gieltshelp.com to get some help with this. So you can go to our websites and practice. Once you do it a few times, it becomes easier, believe me. Okay, it's like riding a bicycle. Okay, Marina says, apartments became dominant in real estate in 2010. Sure, it's a nice, simple sentence. Now say what it is. At nearly half of all real estate sold, or at nearly half of all the types of homes sold, because now it's 45%, right? And you can make that comparison between 2002 and 2006. So in 2002 and 2006, what percentage or what proportion of sales were apartments? Safa, you do not need to write about the change here. It's insignificant. That 3% change does not matter. Okay? It's more important, that's right. So Claudiu says it's a third. That's much more important to recognize that in 2002 and 2006, it's a third of the total. So it's 30% here, 33% here. So it's approximately a third of the total. Okay? But by 2010, it's nearing half of the total. So Lytton says apartment changes was consistent in the year 2002 and 2006, but it was a wrap. No, Lytton, again, see, so this is what I was telling you, girls and guys. If you look at Lytton's comment, and Lytton, this is not to poke at you, don't take it the wrong way, there is no rapid increase here because you can't see year 2007, 8, and 9, so you don't know if it's a rapid increase. There could be a decrease, there could be an increase. You don't know that, so you can't write about a pie chart like you write about a line graph, okay? You cannot write about a pie chart like a line graph. Again, for those of you who are joining more recently, please make sure to watch this lesson again on our YouTube channel, subscribe to it, and you will see that at the beginning of the lesson, I show you very clearly that you can't write about pie charts like line graphs, okay? There's no rapid increase there. We don't see that. I appreciate that you're diplomatic about that, Lytton. Again, I'm not poking fun. I'm just want to make a clear point there. Okay, so Sanjay, again, the same mistake. Okay, there is no growth there. You can't see that growth. There's more here, there's less here, but I don't see growth. I don't see the years in between. So see, it's really easy to make that mistake of confusing line graphs with pie charts. Okay, here, I'll combine this for you. Again, guys, girls, practice, use our website, submit your essays for editing, and you will learn this. So, on the other hand, in 2002 and 2006, sales of apartments made up approximately 1/3 of the total. Conversely, in 2010, right, that's the year, yeah, apartment sales were near half of all types of homes sold. Okay, so that would be the correct way to describe that. Okay, on the other hand, in 2002 and 2006, sales of apartments made up approximately 1/3 of the total. Conversely, in 2010, apartments sales, just take that S out, make it better English. Apartment sales were near half of all types of homes sold, okay? Now, I realize that, I'm using quite high level here. I'm showing you 8.5, band 9 type writing. I want you to see the maximum. But if you can't write sentences with this type of grammar, it's maybe too advanced, keep it simple. You can write it with more simple grammar. So you can say, on the other hand, in 2002 and 2006, apartment sales are approximately 1/3 the total, period. Conversely, in 2010, apartment sales were near half the total sold, period. So you can do more simple sentences. You can say this information in a more simple way than I'm showing you here, and you can still get 7 with that, as long as you don't have too many mistakes, and as long as you have this information, okay? All right, and you can do it like that, Maria Jabbar, where you put in 1/3 of the proportion as a number 1/3. That's okay as well, and you can do 2002 hyphen 2006. That's a good way to do it as well, but I wouldn't do the hyphen 2006 because that means 2, and this is not a line graph, okay? So make sure you do not confuse line graph. All right, so now we just have the summary. And in the summary, I would include our final comparison. So in summary, both the line graph and pie charts show changes in the real estate market. In the real estate markets, especially for the USA, right? Because the pie charts are specific to USA. So here we have the types of homes sold in the USA, and here we have the comparison between the number of home buyers in the USA versus Canada. Okay, especially those of you who watched the class from the beginning, you'll remember this. So this is our point number 11. It is the comparison between the pie charts and the line graph. So here we have the line graph, here we have the pie charts, and comparison number 11, right? So comparison number 11 has to do with this change here and this big one here, okay? So what is a good sentence for the summary for our comparison number 11? Nope, summary and overview are not the same, and you'll see that very clearly here, Yoshi. They're not the same. The summary is your final comparison that we can infer from this, okay? So it should be something different than your overview. Okay? So somebody give me a sentence for this very last, very crucial, very important number 11, okay, where we compare or infer information when we look at the pie chart and the line graph. And remember, the pie charts are specific to the USA. The USA is this blue line here. So we're not talking about both countries. We'd want to talk about the USA here. So I'll give you a second to think about that. So Marina, think again. Decrease in general in both countries is okay, but I'm looking for something a little bit more specific here. Safa, I wouldn't even bother with this 11 here. Sorry, I made that mistake. I showed you 11 in here, but don't even bother about townhomes, okay? If you're looking for a level 9, you're very quick in writing, you have experience with statistics and graphs and tables, maybe you'd write about the townhomes. But after writing what we just did here, I wouldn't even bother with townhomes. It's such a small part of the information in these two graphs that in the 200 word count, I would probably ignore these last points and I would ignore the townhomes. I would focus much more on these big trends and these main effects of houses and apartments. So something like this, guys and girls, and this is what you're doing if you want to get a band 7, 8, 9, 7.5, 8, 9. So in summary, both the line graph and pie charts show changes in real estate markets, especially for the USA. When comparing the line graph to the pie charts, it is clear that the changes in percentage of home buyers in the USA also had a relationship with the types of real estate sold, specifically houses versus apartments. Okay? So that would be my final summary there. So when comparing the line graph to the pie charts, it is clear that the changes in percentage of home buyers in the USA, and if I want to be super hardcore, I can even say between 2007 and 2011, also had a relationship with the type of real estate sold, specifically houses versus apartments. Okay, so that would be my final summary statement for this essay. So if I look at the full essay right now, I'll do a word count for you so you can see that. It is, whoa. Okay, it's telling me that it is 287 words. Now I have some instructions in there, so roughly this is 250 words. And for this, you would probably get a band 9, okay? 250 words, band 9, okay? So that's basically what you want to do if you want to get that maximum band. It's about 250 words without the instructions and band 9, okay? And you can do that in 20 minutes if you have that level of English. Now, if you write 200 words and you miss some of these sentences, you make a couple of spelling mistakes, you can still get a 7.5, okay? So 200 words, couple sentences less, a couple of spelling mistakes, a couple of grammar mistakes, you can still get 7.5, okay? IRPI, it's not too long for task 1 if you want to get a band 9, okay? It's too long for task 1 if you want to get a band 7 or 7.5. Then you should go shorter and just focus more on your quality. Okay, it's a good question. All right. So now let's just do a quick recap here. So let's read what we actually wrote. Make sure it makes sense. So here we have again the picture that we're discussing. Okay. You see all my markings there, but basically we have the line graph, these 3 pie charts. First, we discussed the line graph. We did an overview of both. We talked about the comparison between USA and Canada. Then we talked about the comparisons in the pie charts. And finally, in the summary, we made a comparison between the line graph and the pie charts. So the essay for this reads like, The line graph and 3 pie charts illustrate the proportionate changes in house buyers in the USA and Canada and the kinds of dwellings, apartment, townhome, and house purchased in different years respectively. It is clear from the line graph that both countries experienced significant changes in the number of buyers from 2001 to 2011. Also, it is clear that the popularity of different types of homes purchased changed, especially between 2006 and 2010. In the first 5 years, according to the line graph, both Canada and the USA experienced a rapid increase in home buyers, roughly a jump of 40% from 2001 to 2005. After 2005, Canada suddenly drops in home buyers, but the USA continues to climb until post-2006. Now, I'm using present tense there because I'm referring to the graph. From mid-2007, Canada again experienced, that's why it's giving me the grammar underline, a sharp rise in the change of home purchasers. Then, near the end of 2008, USA plummets about 70% change in real estate buyers until mid-2010. When comparing the pie charts, there are significant changes between types of homes sold. In 2002 and 2006, houses dominated the real estate market at roughly half of all types of housing sold. However, in 2006, this changed to just under 1/3, 30% being houses. On the other hand, 2002 and 2006, sales of apartments made up approximately 1/3 of the total. Conversely, in 2010, apartment sales were near half of all types of homes sold. Now, just a quick correction here for my Band 9 grammar. That should be a semicolon, comma. In summary, both the line graph and pie charts show changes in the real estate markets, especially for the USA. When comparing the line graph to the pie charts, it is clear that the changes in percentage of home buyers in the USA also had a relationship with the type of real estate sold, specifically houses versus apartments. Okay? So I realize that's intense. I realize that, that's maybe over the top for some students, and that's fine. I'm just showing you a Band 9 and how to take the steps to get there. Again, practicing at home, you will be able to reach this score. Now, to help you more, I want to show you something, especially for those of you who have our course. In the back of your book, this one is page 126 in test book number 2. So you have the same question repeated. Notice that the question is here. And you have an example essay that is also level 8-9. So let's read this one. This is a second template. This is a second way to do it. Now, Abhilash, there is no clear template to get a good score because each question is different. So you need to learn the strategy and the steps. There is no kind of example that you can follow for everything. Okay, it will not work. That's what I said at the beginning of the lesson. You have to have the fundamentals of graphs and charts. And you have to understand this, and you have to use thinking. Okay, so this is in the back of the book. This one is a little bit different. You'll notice that there are more than one way to answer the question, or as the idiom goes in English, there's more than one way to skin a cat. It means that you can write different ways to get that high band score, but you'll notice that this is also following the same type of strategy and logic. Okay? So this line and pie chart gives two types of information about housing. The line graph explains the trend in home buyers, and the pie charts show the types of homes that were purchased in America. The line graph depicts a gradual increase and a sudden decrease in the US for home buyers, and a similar trend for Canada with some more variance in later years. The pie charts show that houses were the most popular type of real estate in 2002 and 2006, but this changed to apartments in 2010. So that's the overview. Again, for those of you who have our course, if you look at page 126 in your test book 2, you will see this template. Okay? Looking at the line graph in more detail, it is clear that the U.S. housing market peaked in 2008 and fell to an all-time low in 2010 with a decrease of 70% of home buyers. Notice that it's the same information that we have in the other example, just said a little bit different. Conversely, Canada hit an all-time high in 2005, then dropped by 40% by 2007 before climbing up again. The pie charts show that over half the properties sold in 2002 were houses. Number is just a third in 2010. This number, it should say. On the other hand, apartments were a third of the sales in 2002, but nearly half the sales in 2010. Almost the exact same logic and sentence that we have in our example. In summary, when comparing the line graph to the pie charts, it can be seen that more houses were purchased in the U.S. when there's an increase in home buyers and an increase in apartment sales when the number of buyers decrease. So very similar summary to our example, our working example, but just said in a different way. Okay? So again, there's more than one way to skin a cat. All right? So that's it for today. There you have 2 example answers for these types of questions, for this pie chart line graph type question. Now, I'll give you a couple minutes to ask me questions before we end the class today. So does anybody have any questions about task 1 that you're curious about? Anybody have some questions that you want me to answer for you? Now's a good chance. Just throw them out there. Yes, I have 3 times. Hike. Of course. I have to test the test that I test. Okay, any questions? Any questions about task 1, tasks 2, just any general question? Okay, Avin says, sir, if I write an overview above, it is important to write summary at last. Yes, it is. If you don't write a summary, you can probably still get an okay score, like 6.5 or 7. But if you really want to push for those higher IELTS scores, Avin, you should write a summary. Okay, especially if the summary is a very important summary, like in our example, where we compare the similarity or difference between the 2 graphs. Okay, you're very welcome, Mohammed. I appreciate you sitting through such a difficult class. Sunita, it's not very effective. For idioms for task 2, it's not necessary to get a high score. And in more situations, I see students making mistakes in the way that they use idioms in task 2. So I usually tell students to avoid idioms in both task 2 and their speaking. The only time you should ever use an idiom is if you're really, really, really sure that you're using it correctly. That's a good question, Maria. So if 2 charts are given, do we have to write 1 paragraph each? Not necessarily. You can combine them into 1 paragraph, but in many situations, Maria, it does make it more clear if you separate the 2 graphs into 2 paragraphs for the analysis part. It makes it more clear for your reader, so it's not a bad idea, okay? You're very welcome, Ivan, for that answer. The next online class, Angie, will be tomorrow at the same time, noon, Central European Budapest time, and it will actually be 2 lessons. I'll have one at noon, and I'll have one at 3 p.m. as well. So tomorrow will be speaking, okay? Next class is speaking. I'll put that here. Class tomorrow at noon, Central Europe, Budapest time, okay? And also at 3 p.m., so it will be 2 classes, and it will be speaking, example, and strategy. Okay? So that was a good question. I'm sorry if I missed some of the questions being asked right now. I'm trying to multitask as best as I can. Okay. Maximum paragraphs for task 1 is probably going to be 4. If it's a complicated one like this, Bina, like if you have a line graph with pie charts, you'll have an overview. You'll have 1 paragraph for the line graph, you'll have 1 paragraph for the pie charts, and you'll have a summary where you'll sum up the information and make a key comparison between those graphs. So that would make it 4. 4 short paragraphs. These aren't 4 long paragraphs like task 2, okay? Thank you, Roshni. That's a very positive statement to make. And Roshni, in one way, I hope that you, as well as many of the other students, realize that, yes, I'm teaching you IELTS right now, and I want you to succeed in IELTS as a first step, but also what I'm teaching you, and when I'm teaching you this kind of information like the line graphs, that's very, very important for university as well. So you will use that in university and college also. Abhilash, if it's just 1 chart, it's good. You can put your hands together and be happy. It does happen that you just have 1 chart to write about. It's going to be probably a more complicated chart with more information in it. Then you just write 3 paragraphs. So an overview, a big, descriptive, chunky, detailed analysis for your body paragraph, and then a summary about the main inference that you can get from that. Hike, that's a great question. TOEFL and IELTS, a TOEFL IBT, the internet-based test. By the way, we also have a TOEFL website. It's TOEFLtesthelp.com, no surprise. IELTS and TOEFL are basically the same level of difficulty. It depends on who you are. IELTS is a little bit more personable. The questions include fill in the blanks, paragraph completion, matching sentence endings. The speaking is done with a live person who's really interviewing you. TOEFL is much more machine-based. So it's all multiple choice, some different types of multiple choice, and the speaking, you're just speaking to the computer and a microphone, it's being recorded. So some people prefer IELTS, some people prefer TOEFL. The difficulty is the same. You have to try both and figure out which one's easier for you. But remember this, today, these days, 2018, more universities accept IELTS than TOEFL. Okay, so IELTS gives you more opportunities than TOEFL. TOEFL's okay, but IELTS is better in this way. What's my best writing task tips to give you, Tume? That's a great question. It's a very general question, but it's a good question. My number 1 tip to give to you for writing is make sure that number 1, you're answering the question that you're being asked, and number 2, make sure that you have clear structure to your answer, okay? The most common mistakes are that 1, students miswrite. So just like in the speaking, they misspeak. They speak about different information than what you're being asked, okay? So make sure you are clearly answering the question you're being asked. And number 2, make sure that there's a clear structure, a logical, connected structure to your writing. Claudio, you're asking me about contractions. So don't, I'm, heed, weed. Those are contractions. In academic writing, do not use contractions, okay? So on IELTS, I recommend avoiding contractions. If you're studying for general IELTS and you're writing task 1, letters, then you can use I'm and we'd love to see you. I'm living in London right now. So task 1, general IELTS, okay. Task 1, academic IELTS, absolutely not, okay? I'm backlit, Angie. That's why you can't see my face all that well. If it's sunny weather tomorrow, I have a window beside me, then you'll probably see my face a little bit better. So let's hope for sunshine in Budapest for tomorrow, and then you'll see my face more, okay? Avin, I have done a MAPS question a couple weeks ago. So if you go on the YouTube channel that you're at right now and you search for our Task 1 live classes, then you will find a MAP type question, task 1, that I already did. So I probably won't do another map type question for at least a few weeks, okay? So just go on to the channel and find that task 1 example. It's on the channel. Again, girls and guys, these classes are regular, so you can find a lot more of these lessons that are recorded and up on the channel, like that task 1 about maps, Avin, okay? All right, girls and guys, that's all the time for today. Thank you so much for joining. Again, please remember, support us by joining us at aehelp.com for academic IELTS, gieltshelp.com for general IELTS. Again, we do provide writing and editing services for task 1, task 2, where we can specifically show you where you are making mistakes and what you need to do to improve. Thank you so much for watching this fairly tricky and difficult task 1 class today. I'm happy that you stuck with it and kept with it, and that will be rewarded, I'm sure. Have a great rest of your day, or a great night if it's late where you're at. Get some good sleep, an important and enjoyable part of life. And I will see you tomorrow for classes again. Much love and goodbye for now.